Oh. Oh. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hari Om, and greetings from Niagara Falls. In Srimad Bhagavatam, our rishis have shared that at different stages of life, there should be an emphasis on different training. What this framework looks like from the age of 0 to 23. One's samyama. Samyama means training, should be in vrata. Vrata in English means commitment. For 24 years, one should train themselves in being committed. From the age of 24 to 47, the samyama is in kriya. Kriya here symbolizes responsibility. That one should be trained to be more responsible, to embrace responsibilities. From the age of 48 to 59, the samyama is towards seva. One should be training themselves in serving beyond themselves, beyond their families, to the community and society. And from 60 plus, one's samyama should be towards the indriyas. Training in not trying to create joy, but rather to feel joy is one's nature. What's important to note in all of this is each of these trainings builds on the other. Only if one is trained in being committed can one be responsible. Agreed? And so on and so forth. Another important insight, more important than what we do is why we do. You are not going to train yourself in being committed unless you have a clear why. And this is the reason why every spring we facilitate workshops that focus on this why, to answer the why. We are about to complete our workshop on the significance of our samskaras. The rituals in Sanatana Dharma, these are to be felt as reminders. Reminders that there's more to life than what you're doing. There's more to life than who you are. These reminders should be directing us to know we are divine. Changing the language. Samskara means well done. Like pizza. The next time you order pizza, I'll take it samskara. That is, right actions are to lead to the right attitude. And the finality of the right attitude is to know that one is divine. This year, we have zoomed into when you are 1 year old, the samskara we engage in is chuda karana. Traditionally, one shaves their head. How can we relate to that right now? We're not one. We don't have hair to shave. It is to feel this sense of freshness, that you're going to keep moving forward with your life. This should be done in a protected environment and a directed environment. If you think of an animal that molts, they do that in a protected environment, correct? And then they become stronger. They become faster. They're directed. So if you want to engage in chuda karana, do so. In a protected environment, create this freshness, and then direct yourself in a new way. When you are 5 years old, the 10th samskara is akshara abhyasa. Traditionally, a wise person you know they're wise. They help you to write Om so that you use all of your opportunities to feel divine. In a tactile sense, if I've missed out on engaging in Akshara Abhyasa, what do I do? What we should do is be grateful. Be grateful for all of the sources of wisdom in our lives. Relatedly, express this gratitude through generosity. Relatedly, express this generosity by feeling grace-filled. One who is feeling grace-filled, they use all of the opportunities that they feel graced by, and they share that. One who is graceful, they're using opportunities and sharing that. And this is so clearly shown in this samskara. I had shared with all of you that this writing of Om is on a bed of rice. This is raw rice, uncooked. When Om is written, then that rice is cooked and everyone shares in that rice. They eat it. Now, why I'm pointing this out to you, rice in Sanskrit, one of the words for rice is akshata. Akshata is synonymous with akshara, that which is indestructible, that which is important. So this rice is internalized, that I should feel this divinity, but this rice is also shared with others, correct? So you're using this opportunity and sharing this with others. That's that grace or the daya. When one is 6 years old, they engage in the 11th samskara, which is upanayana. Chudakarana, you're a year old. Aksharabhyasa, 5 years old. Upanayana, 6 years old. This is one of the most comprehensive samskaras. It involves an acharya. What is the implication of that? A role model. I've shared hundreds of times with this community that one of the most potent ways to nurture resilience is examples, is to have the right role models. This involves a yajna upavita, a sacred thread. The implication of this: shift from focusing on your outer personality to focusing on your inner personality. Meaning less body and breath and more mind and intellect. Mind here, intellect here. This samskara also involves Gayatri, the Gayatri mantra. What Gayatri mantra proclaims is the way that the sun illuminates this world. In the same way, let the Veda illuminate one's intellect. So there's an outer shining that comes from the physical sun. There's an inner shining that comes from the Veda. I've shared with you the traditional way of Upanayana. Here's the tactile way. For my own curiosity, how many of you have gone through the Upanayana Samskara? By a show of hands. If you look around, I see one hand. Only that person is going to be happy. The rest of us are stuck. At 6 years old, we didn't know what was happening, so now we're stuck. We have to be born again to be happy. How we can engage in this samskara in a tactile way. Be clear about what's important. Our intellect, which is the most powerful equipment of us, that's symbolized by the highest part of us, this intellect is the equipment to be able to be enlightened, to be independently joyous. Let this be the ideal. Let this be important and live accordingly then. So if that's set for you, and I think for most of us this is, so I'm going to ask again, how many have engaged in the Upanayana Samskara? Here's where all of you who are listening would have your hands up. Otherwise, you've openly insulted that for 14 and a half years. I've been trying to share independent joy. We didn't do it when we were 6. We're going to be reborn. The 12th samskara. This happens when you are approximately 18. As these samskaras go on, the ages become less defined. I'll share more shortly, but let's say approximately 18. Samavartana is made up of 2 words. Sam, and you hear this prefix a lot, means well. Avartana means to return. Well returned when you're around 18 years old. From the absolute perspective, what this symbolizes is one has completed being a brahmachari or brahmacharini. Please share with me, what does it mean to be a brahmachari? Share in the chat. What does it mean to be a brahmachari? Yes, very happy to see these responses. The one who's, the technical word is wandering, but the better word is directing themselves to Bhagwan Brahma, that is the Veda, and more so to Brahma, the infinite. So here, from the absolute perspective, it means you've completed being a brahmachari, which means you've completed studying the Veda. You've completed studying it. That doesn't mean that you've completed knowing it. That's quite different. In this samskara, there's a symbolic bathing that happens. It's called a vidya snataka. That over the period of 12 years, one has been bathed in knowledge. That is a really lovely visualization. Did you have a bath today? Yeah, Bhagavad Gita. Vidya snataka. And another perspective from the absolute. It is the understanding and appreciation that all that one has experienced has been theoretical in a controlled environment. But if one wants to evolve from studying to knowing, you have to shift to application, to an uncontrolled environment. To a relative perspective, I'd shared that this generally happens at 18 years. Factually, though, when a disciple, a student, feels that they've had enough theory, then they ask their acharya if they can leave the Gurukula. They ask. And that's a very beautiful message. I've shared this with all of you before. In Vivekji, there's a specific culture that is taught that you have to ask permission to ask your guru to ask a question. So you have to get permission just to ask a question. That's the intensity of manana that one should engage in before they ask a question. So here a similar sentiment is being shared. Can I leave the Gurukula now? They don't just leave randomly. They don't fight and leave. It's not time-based. They ask. And the fact that they ask shows their maturity. Agreed? From a traditional perspective, samavartana is when a shishya, a disciple, feels dakshana. They feel grateful that that which is inaccessible has been made accessible to them. And this is expressed as dana. They offer dana to their acharya for the ashram. This is not a registration fee. It's not like my kids going to daycare where if we don't pay, they don't get to go. So we don't get to live then. This is all, volunteering is the wrong word. It is all pure seva. No expectations in either direction. When this dana is offered, then the acharya gives prasad in the form of dikshanta pravachana. Dikshanta means the end of the initiation. Pravachana, which means address, this is the valedictory address. This is the final message. Many of us have been exposed to this through Taittiriya Upanishad. Satyam vada, dharmam chara, and so on. These are the final messages. Speak the truth. Follow the truth. This dakshana, dana, dikshanta, pravachana is not an event. It is nitya. A disciple is one who feels ever grateful, and so they're ever generous. In our tradition, whatever one earns, a portion of that always goes back to the acharya for the ashram. And what's so fascinating about this, Sanatana Dharma is the oldest religion. And this is an integral part of our religion. Yet, hardly anyone in our religion practices it, and other religions do, correct? That a portion of your paycheck goes to the synagogue or to the church or to the mosque. These workshops are important so that our religion doesn't just survive, but thrives. Now, most of us are over 18. Most of us didn't go to the Gurukula. So what do we do with Samavartana? In a tactile sense, on all of your birthdays, be self-reflective. Self-reflective. When you're living in the ashram, you have at least 3 birthdays. What are those birthdays? The birthday of the Shastra. For us, that's Gita Jayanti. More proximate is the birthday of your Acharya. For us, that's Vyasa Purnima or Guru Purnima. And the third is your own biological birthday. Or you can think of it when you went to the ashram. I know the exact day that I arrived at the ashram because I was happy my mosquito nets worked. The mosquito screens didn't have holes in them. On all of these birthdays, be self-reflective about, are you following the truth? And each birthday, the answer should be yes, more emphatically. Awesome, no? These samskaras, as I told you, they're very humbling. And as I'm sharing this with you, I feel like I'm doing a disservice to all of you because there's so much more, and I keep having to simplify this. Please know there is more, but more important than studying more is knowing more, which means you feel this. That's why I'm giving you these tactile ways to practice these samskaras. Are we all clear? Good. Number 13, Vivaha. And if I had sound effects, I would play eerie music right now. Vivaha means Vishesha Vahati. Vahati is like Vahana, which means to lift. A Vahana is a vehicle. It lifts you like Bhagwan Shiva's Nandi. Vishesha means a special lifting. When that's all combined, it means upliftment. So when someone asks you, what does Vivaha mean? Upliftment. And a synonym of this is Dharma. A synonym to Vivaha is Dharma. Tell me, what does Dharma mean as a verb? Share with me in the chat. What does Dharma mean as a verb? Wow. What awesome seekers you are. It means that which integrates. There's an upliftment, body to mind to intellect. As I shared earlier, as these samskaras go on, there is less of a vidhi. Vidhi means do this at this time, in this way. The mentality is, as you become more mature, you should be able to make decisions for yourself. For those who are thinking in a very linear way, if you continue with this age scheme, one should get married around the age of 24. How many of you were married by the age of 24? Some. I was 29 when I got married. So I'm sharing this with you. Each person is different. Okay? As you become more mature, don't get lost in the facts. From an absolute perspective, Vivaha is an opportunity, is a sadhana to practice bigness. Bigness. And for those who are new to this community, you're really disappointed with my language right now. Bigness, philosophically, is Brahma, infinity. So Vivaha is a sadhana. It is this sadhana or means that leads to the sadhya, which is infinity. How is this facilitated? In a Vivaha, there are many rituals or steps that focus on vision, such as the Mangala Pere, which is when a couple, and please note, I'm saying couple. I didn't say man and woman. I simply said couple. When a couple walks around a fire multiple times, each time they're making a promise to the divine. That fire is a witness. So they're making a promise to the divine with the fire as a witness that they're going to evolve their identity. They're already individuals, but in this Vivaha, now they're going to become family, yes? Then another step is towards community, and another step is towards society, and the final step, divinity. Everyone's with me. Vivaha itself is a comprehensive samskara. I've spoken at many Vivahas in terms of the philosophy, but I wasn't so happy with those experiences because I was sharing the philosophy, but the actual ritual was not aligned with that. So like Amazon is engaged in vertical integration, so am I. So now I speak the philosophy and engage in the practice. So if anybody wants to hire me, and my point in all of this is that Vivahas are most comprehensive. You know how I like to simplify, but even the Vivaha that I recently facilitated, in its shortest sense, was 90 minutes. The traditional Vivaha is 3 days. I did half a muhurta. Continuing, at the end of a Vivaha, the actual ritual, then everyone in that assembly prostrates to that couple. Can you imagine that? The parents, the grandparents, even the pujari prostrates, because with the completion of this establishment of vision, that couple is supposed to feel that they are Bhagavati Lakshmi and Bhagwan Narayana. So if I prostrate to the person whose Vivaha I just facilitated, I should feel that they are divine. Even if they don't feel it, at least I should feel it then. But they should also feel that too. And when the ritual is completed, then that, and I'm going to use traditional terminology here, the husband is known as a Sahadharmachari. And the wife is known as a Sahadharmacharini, which means each is supporting each other to follow dharma. Remember, I told you Vivaha and dharma are synonyms. I'm going to zoom into this. If you're 24 years old, you should have already been following dharma. That should be a done deal. The evolution of dharma, and many of our Bhagavata students would know this, it is Sat Dharma. Now that I have more hands, in my case, I have 2 and Sheila has 2, now we have 4 hands together. As a family, our dharma should evolve to more smarana, remembrance of the divine, more dana, generosity for the divine, more pratignya, commitment, follow through for the divine, and raksha, more support of the divine, which means creation. There's so much I have to share about this, so I'm not going to hold back. Still at the absolute perspective. In our culture, how many ashramas or stages of life are there? 4, very clear. If we take this in a very black and white way, brahmacharis means those who are students. Who do they depend on? Grahastas, those who are engaged in caring as a family. Those who are vanaprasthas, those who are retired, who do they depend on? Grahastas. Think about all of you who are caring for aging parents. Don't they depend on you? Emotionally, financially. And those who are sannyasis, those who don't focus on food and funds, who do they depend on? Those who have food and funds, correct? Which is the grahastas. Every part of society depends on vivaha, which again I'm sharing is a synonym for dharma. Dharma is that which supports. You can see that in the chat. And the final, there's so much more, but for the sake of moving forward, the final absolute perspective. What number of samskaras is this? What number? 13. What is the Hindi word for 13? Tera. What does tera mean? Yours. Vivaha, grahastha is about living for everyone other than yourself. When I was studying in the ashram, we were the 13th batch. And Puja Guruji, Swami Tejomayananda, he had really beautifully shared that you are tera, meaning you are an offering to the Guru Shishya Parampara. How we have disappointed Puja Guruji, Swami Tejomayananda, but at least he said it. From the absolute to the relative. Being married. And here I want to qualify. Being married means you are practicing selflessness. You are living and working with people actively. Because there's many of you who are not married. You're choosing that, or the multiverse is choosing that for you. Does that mean that these samskaras are not applicable then? There's many of you who have nothing to do with Bharatiya culture. Does that mean samskaras have nothing to do with you? I wasn't born in India. My mother tongue is English. I don't like cricket. This is all universal. But for the sake of language, so I can continue moving forward, when one is married, this is a incomparable swadhyaya. Incomparable swadhyaya. Swadhyaya means studying oneself. When you're living and working with people in an active way, you come to know more about yourself than if you weren't living and working with people. Agreed? Specifically, your vices. Yes? This became very apparent to me when Sheila and I used to travel together before our children. And Sheila would sit in the discourses when I would speak in Raleigh or Portland or wherever. And I would see her taking notes. And this made me feel good, you know. My wife is my shishya. She's not a Sahadharmacharini, she's a shishya. And then later on, when we would be back in someone's home and we would be getting ready for bed, I would ask her, so what did you learn in the discourse? And she would open her notebook and tell me all of the wrong things I was doing as I was speaking. I said this wrong, you pronounced this wrong, and so on. Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya vices. And also, living and working with people is an incomparable seva. If you don't live and work with people, I really feel seva is still theoretical. But when you live and work with people, there's so much you have to absorb. Petty remarks, poor body language, passive aggressiveness, and all of that. You just have to keep on absorbing that. Do you agree? And that wouldn't happen if you weren't living and working with people. We shift to a traditional practice of Vivaha. Engage a pujari whom you knows the philosophy. Engage a pujari who knows the philosophy. Otherwise, your Vivaha will be very forgettable. Not unforgettable, it will be forgettable. And please note that what a pujari is doing in a Vivaha or any of these samskaras, they are invoking what is inside of you to come outside of you. What is inside of you? Divinity. What is inside of you? Joy. What is inside of you? Cheer. So they're invoking that through rituals and through chanting and so on. If you analyze what a pujari chants, they just keep chanting Mangala shlokas. They're literally going through mantra pushpam, chanting this auspicious mantra and that auspicious mantra. And that's okay because that's what's supposed to be done. Which leads me to how we can engage in Vivaha. We're older than 24, maybe we're not living with someone, etc. Pratignya purti. Pratignya means promise. Purti means to fulfill a promise. As you go about living, be one who follows through with integrating with others. Integrate with yourself, that's dharma. Then integrate with one person, then another person, then another person. So family, community, this does not have to be a legal matter. It's about following through with this integration. Pratignya, purti, And to help us, this is why for almost 10 years now, I started in 2014, we have organized marriage enrichment retreats, marriage enrichment workshops. And I find this to be so hilarious. There's some centers who host these retreats, and the people in that community think that if you attend this retreat, you have marriage problems. I feel the exact opposite. If you don't attend this retreat, you have marriage problems. And what is shared in these retreats and these workshops? Follow through. That vision, that swadhyaya, and so on. I'm going to take a few more minutes to continue to the 14th samskara. This one I can be more brief on because you've all been exposed to this many times. The 14th samskara is Panchamahayajna. Panchamahayajna, in English, 5 great dedications. A synonym to this is pancharina, which means 5 debts. To be noted, this is the first samskara you perform for yourself. The first 13 were facilitated for you. In fact, only 14 and 15. 15 we'll cover tomorrow. These are the only 2 that you facilitate for yourself. See how the whole culture of samskaras is about humility. That there's no sense of doership because you're hardly doing anything. Okay. From an absolute perspective, yajna means dedication. I feel it is inaccurate to define yajna as sacrifice because sacrifice only happens where there is dedication. No dedication, no sacrifice. Dedication. There are 5 facets of this multiverse that are dedicated to us. And it is because of this dedication that our lives are facilitated. If any of these dedications was not there, our lives would not exist, leave alone be productive. What are these 5? From outside to inside. Number 5, the Deva Yajna. The dedication of nature's forces, such as the sun, oxygen, etc. Number 4, Bhuta Yajna, the dedication of nature's beings, such as bats. Bats eat mosquitoes. Mosquitoes make Vivek sad, so bats make Vivek happy. Nature's beings. Number 3, Samaj Yajna, the dedication of society. Our children, and I have no idea why, but they love this song called Snowplow. You can Google it later. Today I was sleeping in Vyasa's room. Our children really are not well right now. So I was sleeping in his room and he was sleep talking. And at one point he goes, snow plow. And then after that he said appa. So I was happy about that. But you can watch that later. And my point is, if people don't plow the streets, we can't carry on, correct? How do you make it to the airport? You can't. Number 2, Pitra Yajna, the dedication of our family. That means our whole lineage. And number one, this is the most important, the closest, the Rishi Yajna. That is the dedication of our guides. Deva, Bhuta, Samaj, Pitra, Rishi. I'm going to leave the relative perspective for now and just fast forward to the traditional and tactile, and then we'll begin dynamics. The traditional perspective on Panchamahayajna is all day, every day. I should change the order to every day, all day. Offerings are made in a ritualistic way. You make an offering into a fire for the Deva, as an example. You make an offering into water for the family. I'm just giving you some simple examples, okay? That's the traditional way to practice this samskara. Here's the tactile way. We eat multiple times a day. Taco Bell itself advertises as the fourth meal. Every time you eat, before you begin that meal fully, take 5 small bites with these 3 fingers, ring, middle, and thumb. With these 3 fingers, so imagine I have a plate of salad, and I take 5 small bites, so carrot, tomato, lettuce, whatever it is. And as you're eating this, you keep remembering Deva, Bhuta, Samaj, Pitra, Rishi. And then you eat the rest of your meal. The point being, it is because of this dedication that there's any facilitation of your life. The relative perspective I will share more about tomorrow. And tomorrow, we reach the end of our samskaras. And if you followed all of these samskaras, though you were born as a jiva, as an individual, one should die as Brahma, that is the infinite. So an epic completion to 2 years of workshops we will focus on tomorrow. We shift from discourse to dynamics in a simple, shortened way today, and this will be facilitated by Shankarji. Shankarji, you all know from Meaningful Mornings, he's been teaching us Bhu Sukta, Meda Sukta, and you know Shankarji from so many teaching opportunities we've done together. He has completed living in the ashram as I've described, and now he's sharing that ashram experience. Shankarji, please continue with dynamics.
Hariom, everyone. So for today's dynamics, we are going to be doing a simple drawing activity to help us reflect on the samskara of Vivaha. So, you know, when we were talking about Vivaha, we were saying that in a Vivaha, we're making a commitment to the divine that all of the relationships in our life are to be used as a platform to reach the divine. That everything that all these new responsibilities and new relationships that we're engaging in are for the sole purpose of expanding our sense of identification, so that ultimately we reach the highest. So what we're going to do today is, if we all have an image of our God or guru, so it can be ideally a physical image like a murti or a picture, or if you don't have one, you can pull one up online. And before we begin drawing, just take a minute to reflect on the qualities of your God or chosen God or guru which you admire. What about this chosen God or guru is attracting to you? What draws you to them? So reflect on and identify what those qualities are. And after you've done that, begin drawing your God guru in as much detail or as little detail as you'd like. But the purpose of the drawing is to facilitate absorption. So get lost in your image. right. So as you finish up your drawing, for the next few minutes, take a few moments to write and reflect on how the relationships in your life are helping you develop those qualities which you've identified that you admire in your God or guru. So think about all of the opportunities that you have that arise from all of these meaningful relationships that we're in, that always give us the chance to evolve. So try to think about them, because when we identify all the ways in which these relationships foster our growth, we invoke gratitude. You know, we're appreciative for all of the little things. All right. And the last thing that I think can help us invoke gratitude in our lives is to reflect on all of the ways in which we've experienced God or Guru's grace in our own life. So think of all of the ways in which we've been blessed by God and Guru in our own life. All right. So just to wrap up our exercise, in Vivaha, we are committed to using our relationships to help us grow. Not only help us evolve, but help everyone around us evolve as well. And when we reflect on all of the opportunities that we've been given in our life to help us evolve, in Panchamahayajna, we realize that there's so many debts that we owe to the different facets of the universe all around us. So given that we've been provided so much opportunity, it's our duty to use those opportunities to give back as much as we possibly can. So Hariom, I'll now pass it back over to Vivekji and our team.
Thank you, Shankarji. And it's so wonderful to see Rupa and you. They're a couple, a married couple, who are using the opportunities that they've been given and to share those opportunities with others also. Before I tend to the many questions that are now on Slido, I want to go with the flow of being grateful. I was very happy, not that I have to express that, but on Tuesday when we began our workshop, then we ended early so we can join a prayer for Puja Swami Tejomayananda, Puja Guruji. And as soon as it started, I was telling Sheila, we were sitting beside each other. I said, Chinmaya Mission Mumbai made a mistake by having too small of an account. I don't know if you noticed, but it was locked in at 500. And as soon as this was happening, I emailed our team saying, what is our account like? And our team said, we have 1,000. So I was going to write to Chinmaya Mission Mumbai that, hey, we'll switch over to the Niagara account. We can host more. But Sheila stopped me. But in between, they lifted their account. In between, they increased their Zoom account. So a whole lot of people from around the world were praying for Guruji's welfare. Here is a message from him. Dear all, Hariom. By God's grace, Puja Gurudev's blessings, and intense prayers of you all, the angiogram showed that there are no blockages and the heart is clear. Now only some medical management is required. I take this opportunity to convey my heartfelt appreciation and thanks to Dr. Ajit Menon and his team for performing the procedure efficiently. The management and staff at the renowned Breach Candy Hospital took very good care of me, and I am thankful to them all. Now I need some rest, and therefore I will not be available for at least a week for any kind of meeting or correspondence. With Prem and Om, Tejomayananda, 6th April, 2022. Your prayers worked. Not that Guruji needed them, but let us feel like our prayers worked. Continuing with this change in order. We are about to engage in Samavartana. We're about to complete year 2 of our workshop on the significance of our Samskaras. And with such completion, an opportunity is to be given to all of us to express our dakshina through dana. Dakshina means to be grateful. Gratitude should never be held inside. It should be expressed as dana. Dana means the support of the acharya, of the ashram. And I shared this. I shared this with Akshara Abhyasa, correct? In a tactile way, what should you do? Feel grateful for all of the sources of wisdom in your life and support those sources. I shared this in a traditional way in reference to Samavartana. The Shishya offers dakshina through dana, and then what does the Acharya do? Dikshanta pravachana, offers prasad. Those who would like to express their dakshina as dana, this will be directed to Chinmaya Mission, Cleveland. Chinmaya Mission, Cleveland is another home of mine. I have many homes because I'm that rich here. And so another home of mine is Chinmaya Mission, Cleveland. I'll actually be going there tomorrow. After 25 months of not going to this home, I'll be going there tomorrow. Right now, Chinmaya Mission, Cleveland keeps having to rent different schools for our programs. But they and I, and collectively, we are tired of renting different schools. We want to have our own home. And so whatever dana you offer will be directed towards Chinmaya Mission Cleveland having its own ashram. We are not planning to build an ashram. I've thought about this a lot, and I feel that every time we build, we're harming nature. Whether you build your own home or an office building or an ashram. There's so many schools and religious institutions that are not doing well, which we can purchase and design to become our own ashram. So if you're feeling grateful, express this so that we can have our home in Cleveland, and then such workshops, such retreats, we can all gather physically for this. And just to give you a sense of the strength of Cleveland, everyone who's from Cleveland, physically put your hand up, physically. There's so many from Cleveland who join us. Many of you don't even know where Cleveland is, but they're a strong Vedantic community. I'm shifting over to Slido, and if you have any questions about offering your dana, it's in the chat. This will be emailed to you, or you can email our team. Before I attend to the questions on Slido, I'm going to offer a disclaimer. Your questions are about rituals. I am not a ritualistic person. I am one who has studied the Jnana Kanda and less about the Karma Kanda. And why I'm comfortable with this is because Pujya Swami Tejamayana himself has shared in Tips for Happy Living. We all flowed through this in Meaningful Mornings. More important than minding the planets is minding your mind. There's so many externalities that we can tend to, which flower to offer, how to intonate. But more important than that is minding your mind, correct? Being quiet, feeling this presence. So every answer I'm going to give to you is going to be coming from that narrative. Anonymous. We have to wear sacred threads during some festivals, but only women, married or unmarried, need to wear it. Why are our practices seem sexist? Two perspectives on this. I'm not going to designate higher and lower. Firstly, my experience has been that males who have their yajna upavita, which means that they're now eligible to engage in a yajna or a ritual, they're the ones who have to wear this, and it is not the females. That's been my experience. So yours clearly has been different. Next is, if our practices seem sexist, it is because of the interpretation and facilitation of these practices. And that's why I gave the example, and I'm very happy that Ketanji Brown Jackson was sworn in today. I think she was confirmed to be a Supreme Court justice. It is her interpretation of the Constitution that goes to the people. So now you have the Veda, and you have someone who's interpreting this, but if that person interpreting this is egotistical, they're going to leverage that against this person, correct? And so what if that person is a male? Then they're going to leverage that again. If they're egotistical, they're going to leverage that against, not for or with, but against a female. So it is not our practices, it is the practitioners. Just like, and it's sad, there's so many gun-related deaths in America, but no bullet is ever charged, correct? It is the person who's wielding that gun who shoots the bullet. Finally, if there is a ritual where such conditions are put in place, what should you do? Your body can be there, but your mind doesn't have to be there. Let your mind be like Rishi Tukarama on Bhagavad. But if you're unable to keep your mind there either, then don't be part of it. Don't encourage such practices. Next. Why is it so difficult to talk about transgender, gay, lesbian, binary, etc. to individuals who are part of Indian background? Number one, I feel it's the circles that you are united with, because the circles I'm united with, it's not hard to talk about this. We have entire workshops that are about this, about gender, sexuality, identity. We talk to our kids about this all the time. We have been very conscious to not have these gender normative, I think that's the correct terminology, on our kids. They can like any color they want. They can play with whatever they want. They can call themselves whatever they want. So it depends on the circle you're mixing with, because my circles are not like that. Next is, so much of what we've learned has been from people who are more knowledgeable than us. Yes? In terms of computer science, how many of you have a computer science degree by show of hands? So many of you do. So typical. How many of you have studied Sanskrit grammar? See, now there's less hands. There's less hands. And my point is, now in terms of understanding these samskaras, it's even less than, correct? In terms of understanding this. So we've learned this from someone who's more knowledgeable, but do you trust the person who's sharing with you? And I'm telling you that openly. You should be judging me right now. Whenever I go to communities, I tell them, what proof do you have that I've actually studied at the ashram or I've done know any of this? So if you don't trust them, then what's going to come from them is going to be harder to relate to, correct? And finally, I'm going to question their knowledgeability, because there are a lot of examples in our culture of gay, lesbian, binary, transgender, and on and on and on, any sort of combination that you want to bring up. That is, there are examples of that in our Puranas, in our history, and the final subject in our culture is Vedanta, which means that which is beyond any sort of condition. Lifestyle, body, breath, mind, intellect, ego. Next, why onion and garlic are prohibited in eating. Also, in some cases, potatoes, carrots, etc. I feel the opposite. When I get pizza, I want more garlic and onions on my pizza. In fact, I want more potatoes on my pizza also. Here are some other perspectives. Onions, garlic, they're considered rajasic foods. In a more scientific sense, they're aphrodisiacs, which means they trigger sexual thoughts. But for whom? Our children, I'll give you this micro example. Shuka has had the stomach flu since Sunday. Vyasa started his stomach flu today. Shuka still has the stomach flu. I got it on Monday. I got over it on Tuesday. Why? Because my immunity is just more mature than theirs. My physical immunity is much stronger than theirs is. For someone who's highly sattvic, it doesn't matter what they eat. It doesn't matter who they're with. That will not affect them. Why potatoes are considered uneatable in some contexts? Because it grows underground. And so there's bugs that will get into those potatoes. Everything you've ever eaten has been because of bugs. Bees are bugs. Worms are bugs. Your body is going to be eaten by bugs. Yes. See how more depth of thinking is required for these matters. So how you navigate this is up to you. For Vivek, when I'm exposed to such circumstances, I close my eyes, I smile, and I chant Om Ramaya Namaha. Bhagwan Rama, why did you make me be with such people? This is like me being Devi Sita. I'll just look at my feet and say, Rama, Rama, Rama. Next, for someone who is a seeker, how should they find a spouse partner? And what should they look for in a spouse partner? Should they also be a seeker? The best relationships are amongst seekers, whether married or not. A seeker is one who is adaptive. And so if two people are ready to adapt, it doesn't matter what context they're in, all will be fine. My mother, who's more old school, when she observes different couples, she will openly share. Let's say she'll take a male and say, look at that person. He doesn't drink, he doesn't eat meat, he doesn't gamble. But I know that person too, and that person is mean, is selfish. I know that as much as she knows that. But she's looking at the context. I'm looking at the content. Who cares if they eat meat if they're a very kind person? Correct? I would rather be with such a person. And conversely, if they're a mean person, who cares if they don't do this and this and this? That meanness pervades everything they do. So the first quality you should look for is that they are a seeker. How do you know they're a seeker? They're adaptive or evolving. How do you find such a seeker? Have such circles of seekers. So now while I'm speaking, don't look at me. Look around and see that person's pretty good looking. I know that person. Sheila and I met at a Chinmaya mission camp. Rupa and Shankar met on a Chinmaya mission yatra. All of a sudden, nobody's looking at me. Everyone's looking around. So have such social circles. And finally, I really and experientially feel that if you radiate it to the multiverse, that the purpose of your life is Bhagwan, Bhagwan will radiate back to you or reciprocate back to you one who will help you reach him, reach her. I'm sharing that philosophically and experientially also. Last question. Why do we wear white during a funeral? For the sake of a visualization in our scriptures, our maps, tamas, which is laziness. Where is tamas? Inside is assigned black. Rajas which is aggressiveness. Where is aggressiveness? Again, I'm stating inside, not your skin pigment, is assigned red. And sattva, which is quietness, is assigned white. When one's body dies, or let's say my sister, my brother, my family member, their body has died, ideally, they're not going to be born again. So naturally, that's a very sattvic experience then, correct? And even if that's not the case, where they're not enlightened, death is an amazing teaching opportunity about viveka, or what's important. Have you all been to a funeral? Have you all been to a smashanam, which is a burning ground? If you've ever been to a burning ground, do you think about gambling? Do you think about a vacation? Do you think about anything other than the purpose of your life? See how much quietness is there. So whatever is inside is expressed outside also. Okay? So this is to emphasize how quiet one should be with one's own death or another's death. And please note, quietness does not mean sadness. Quietness is great. It is to be a celebration. There's a seeker in this community who has just shifted to palliative care, and I've been discussing with their family about how when their journey is completed, the journey of the body is completed, that we should have a celebration at the ashram. And they're very much aligned with that, because that's what sattva is. Not sadness, but happiness. Okay? Discourse complete, dynamics complete, dialogue being completed. Your rads thus far have been, how many of these samskaras have you engaged in? Formally, informally. Your next rad was to internalize these samskaras by assigning the right action with the right attitude. Are you doing that? Tomorrow I will share my observations. Here is your third rad, day 3, third rad. I want you to rate yourself in following these samskaras. So far, you've learned about 14 samskaras, and I've focused on how to practice this in a tactile way, because most of us have not practiced this in a traditional way. I want you to rate yourself for all 14 samskaras. 100 is awesome, 1 is awful. Clear? Okay. Announcements. On day 1, I talked about liking and following Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. On day 2, I shared thoughts about our webcasts, that is our YouTube channel, and our podcasts, that is our Live Vedanta podcast. Details of this is on our website. Here is my day 3 announcement. On our website, there is a section called Resources. In the resource section, there are many publications. There are digital books, there are physical books, and all of these are to encourage abhyasa, practice. Do you all see the altar back there? 3 really awesome aspects of this altar, and I'm just looking at who's in our workshop right now. Number 1 is I've covered the whole altar. That way, when people come here, they don't use that altar. That's my space. A lot of those books I don't use, but I just keep them there so other people don't put their stuff there. Next is, do you all see Bhagavan Krishna? But you see the back of Bhagavan Krishna. And the idea is that we're all following him. See, if we could see his face, that doesn't mean we're following him then, correct? That means we're actually confronting him. But like Prince Arjuna, correct? He's looking at the back of Bhagavan Krishna. Okay, and the third part is, two of the books I have there are the Reflection Adventure of the Week workbook and the Seeker's Word book. These are two books that I've personally written, and they're very much about practice. Please go to the resource section, and all of the books that are free, get them. All of the books you have to pay for, get them. All of this is for our own abhyasa. And Bhagavan Krishna has shared, if you don't practice, you can never have a perfect happiness. And what's so epic about these resources, you all help produce these. If you look at the gratitude or the photographs, so many of you are in these books. So we're supporting each other. That's pratignya purti. Follow through in identifying with family, community, and so on. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Be safe, be sound, be serene, be happiness.